Hello, welcome to Picture Perfect Greek, and today we're going to practice the alphabet which we learned last time. So now let's go and do something very silly. We will read words that are English words that you know from English. They're genuine English words, just written with Greek letters. So these words don't make any sense in Greek. They are just English words. But this separates the vocabulary knowledge from the letter knowledge. So if you want to learn the letters, it's good to not have to fight with the vocabulary at the same time. So what we do now is to just concentrate on the letters. So we will be reading English words written in Greek letters and see if you can recognize them. So here's the first one. Which word is this? I give you a bit of time to make up your mind. It's airport. Airport. Right? You can see airport, E for epsilon, the O, the P, another O, a T, airport. Okay? Let's go to the next one. Which word is this? It's a relatively easy one. Steak. And note the use of the tone to break up the E, because normally the epsilon iota would be an E, if you remember. I just told you before, but you also have this in a separate video. In the 5th video about the Greek alphabet, we talk about these letter combinations. And this should have been an E, but then it would be stick, not steak. So if you want to say steak, the way to write it is to use the tone mark, which normally goes on the second letter of a letter combination, and put it on the first letter. So just by putting this tone mark on the first letter of the epsilon iota combination, you say that this combination has to be dissolved, it has to be taken apart, and the letters now stand separately. So it is steak instead of stick. Okay? Next one. This is, of course, French fries. French fries. And again, you see the same effect with the tone on the fries, because the alpha iota normally would be an E. So this should be read French fries. But to show that it is not fries, but fries, we have to remove the tone from the I, where it would normally be, and put it on top of the A. And therefore, then we show that the alpha iota is going to be separated, and it is fries and not fries. The next has the same effect. Read it. Of course, right? This is ice cream. Ice cream. Same here. The tone is on the alpha, showing that it's not an S cream, it's an ice cream, because the alpha iota is being separated. The next one is easy. It is, of course, book. Book. And here we don't want to separate the O and the Y. We want them to make the U sound. We don't want to say boik, right? And this is why we would put the tone on the second letter of the O-Y combination, so that it becomes book, or it stays book, because O and Y together are always an U in Greek, except if you want to separate them. Let's look at the next one. This looks a little more complicated. Library. Okay, that's library. And again, we break up the alpha iota by putting the tone on the alpha. Library instead of library, which would happen if you had the tone on the second letter on the iota. The next one is easy. Curry. Curry. Curry in Greek. The spice mixture that you use for Indian food. The next one is a famous American man. Do you recognize him? George Bush. George Bush. And you see what happens. The Greeks don't have a J and they don't have a sh. So these sounds are approximated. Instead of J, we say Z, and instead of sh, you have to use a normal S. So if you want to pronounce it in a really Greek way, if this was a person who does not know that this is English and supposed to be George Bush, you would pronounce it George Bush. George Bush. That's the only way to approximate these sounds in Greek. But of course, most people will know the name and they will understand this is English and they will try to pronounce it in the correct way. The next one is something you might say to your friend who is standing over there on the other side of the street. Come here. Yes, come here, right? Come here. And then we have a famous chain, fast food chain. McDonald's. McDonald's. And now a little phrase. A little phrase. Green eggs and ham. Green eggs and ham. And again, there is no h for ham, so in Greek you have to use h, and it becomes ham, so what you're actually writing is green eggs and ham. But okay, that's what happens when you change languages. You cannot always map everything perfectly. And so at the end of all this, you would perhaps say something like the next little phrase. Can you guess it? Enough of that. Enough of that. Right? And so we are done with this exercise. But now let's do it the other way. I will give you English words and you try to write them with Greek letters. So let's start with car. How would you write car in Greek? Pause the video here perhaps, get a piece of paper and a pen and try to do it yourself. Try to actually write it. Okay, so here's car in Greek. Let's do the next one. Bicycle. How do you write bicycle with Greek letters? Pause the video if you need to. I will not put so big pauses here because it's perhaps boring for those who are a little faster. If you need more time, there's no problem. Pause the video. Take your time. Bicycle. Here's the word. How I would write it. Train. Try to write train in Greek. That's relatively easy. So here it is, but you have to remember to put the tone on the epsilon. Otherwise it would be trin instead of train. Tomorrow. Of course, with tomorrow, the problem is the O at the end. You don't want to say tomorrow. You want to say tomorrow. So you have to have an O and an U together. O. And now we try yesterday. Write yesterday in Greek. So this is difficult. And I guess you could not do it if you don't already know the trick. The diacritics, these little dots that you have on the last I, on the last letter of the word day. You have to use these diacritics, these little dots. These separate, again, the two letters. Otherwise, it would be yesterday. The problem is, normally we separate them, as we saw in the other examples, by putting the tone on the first letter, like in train. But we cannot do this here because now the tone is somewhere else. The tone is not at the end. It's not yesterday. It's yesterday. and therefore the tone is gone. We cannot put a second tone. So we have to find some other way to separate these two letters. And this is what we do with the two dots. They're called diacritics, and you put them on top of the second letter to separate it from the previous letter, if otherwise they would be read together as a unit. Let's practice again with today. Now you see here you don't need the diacritics because today has a tone mark. It has the stressed syllable on the day, so you can use the tone mark to separate them. Tea bag. Now again, this shows you the limitations of using a foreign writing system for your own language. There is no way to make a long E in Greek, so it would be tea bag, tea bag. There is no tea bag. Flower. And here's how you would write flower. Okay, and now for the last bit of exercise, for the last section of this video, let us write actual Greek words that do exist in Greek. So until now we wrote just nonsense, right? The English words with Greek letters. So now we have a list of words that are actually Greek words, but written in Greek, you may find it a little difficult to recognize them. So look at this one. What is this word? Again, if I'm too fast for you, stop it and pause the video to have more time to look at these words. So the first one is obviously tennis, right? This is not very difficult, tennis. Take the next one is a drink. This is whiskey, whiskey. The next one is also a drink. Gin tonic, gin tonic. This is how you would say it in Greek, right? Gin tonic. Okay, I can play some fine music myself also using this instrument. Which one is it? That's a piano. Piano. When I'm finished playing music, perhaps I want to go out and I will take a means of transport which is written in this way. What is this word? Taxi. Taxi, which of course is a taxi. Now what you're watching right here is a video. Video. And perhaps while watching it, you're eating some healthy fruit, for example, a mango, which is a mango. Many other words have been introduced from foreign languages and are used now as Greek words. For example, this one. Balletto. Balletto, which is a ballet, dancing. Cimento. The next one. Cimento, which means cement. This is also one you should recognize. Robot. Robot, which is a robot. And when you communicate or when you watch these videos, you are using this thing here. That's relatively easy, right? It has only easy letters. Internet. Internet. But now comes a more difficult one. When you're hungry, perhaps you wish for a Now, what's that? That's a hamburger. In Greek, hamburger. Hamburger. And if you want to be a little more fancy, perhaps you use the next word. This one. A cheeseburger. Cheeseburger. Cheeseburger or cheeseburger, depending on how you want to pronounce it. In this case, I wrote cheeseburger. It's a little difficult, right, to recognize. And after eating so much, a bit of sport is healthy. Here is a sport that you can do in Greece very nicely. Lots of people are doing it. What is it? Yeah, well, this looks really weird, right? Windsurfing, which you would pronounce windsurfing, windsurfing, windsurfing. And if this is too complicated for you, you can also just play. The next word. Play. Ball. And that's it. Thanks for being here, and see you in the next lesson. I hope you enjoyed this alphabet silliness. Bye-bye.